So I think a lot of things need to happen to change how racism impacts health and to dismantle really the impact of racism on health so that all communities are able to achieve health equity.
Is this like some sort of racism Mad Lib? That was University of Minnesota Associate Professor of the Division of Health and Policy Management, Rachel Hardiman. She holds the inaugural Blue Cross endowed professorship in health and racial equity, whatever that is. But she may not hold the position for long. Many people in academia, corporate America, and politics have been suckling at the teat of DEI. But that teat is running dry for some. Now Professor Hardiman is drowning in plagiarism allegations. She was alleged to have ripped off her own mentee's dissertation, taking the words and the charts and all. I at least hope that student booked the class. Like, if the professor steals your work, you should definitely get the A+ in the class. This once celebrated pseudo-academic even pushed a study blaming white doctors for killing black babies. Yes, that actually happened. She's gone from media darling to the ranks of the plagiarism accused. Those ranks include, of course, Claudine Gay, the former president of Harvard University, and Barack Obama's OG DEI hire for vice president, that guy. Hardiman is now bolting from her gig on May 14th with her academic reputation appearing faker than Elizabeth Warren's Indian genetics. Hardiman snagged $5 million from Blue Cross and an additional $1.8 million NIH grant to push her DEI narrative, but the Center for Anti-Racism Research for Health and Equity is teetering on the edge. Whistleblowers like Bridget Davis and Jay Judson are spilling the ink on LinkedIn, saying her grants lit up like a Christmas tree on plagiarism audits. 2 internal probes called it an honest error. We doubt that. An honest error is forgetting the garage door opener, not ripping off your own students. This is what happens when you build a career on race hustling instead of rigor. Joining us now, senior fellow at the Claremont Institute and author of a terrific book, The Unprotected Class, How Anti-White Racism is Tearing America Apart, Jeremy Carl. Jeremy, what do you make of the latest news of the anti-racism professor in Minnesota plagiarizing grants and walking away?
Well, I mean, it's no surprise. It's no surprise both either in the behavior, which I think we consistently see in these types of DEI programs. I mean, the people who are gravitating toward that type of work are frankly disproportionately likely to be unethical. Chris Rufo, when he did some earlier exposés of this, actually showed this, where he was able to sort of find instances of plagiarism in some of these guys' work. And just to be clear that he was being fair, he sort of tried some other comparable positions that were not DEI focused, and he didn't find the plagiarism. I think the other thing that's not surprising is that there was really no institutional accountability. This woman was on the Time 100 most important people in the world, super influence, complaints, and nothing happened. And so you just see DEI as an accountability-free zone.
And you wonder whether or not it's something unique about the people going into the DEI work that makes them plagiarize, or if DEI itself has become so paint by numbers that it begs the plagiarism, because it is so intellectually devoid of like the basics of argumentation, a claim and a warrant. And so why not plagiarize if all you have to do is throw in a few buzzwords and there's money flowing in a crazy amount of federal grants? You created a lot of the intellectual architecture around the rejection of DEI, and you did it during the Biden years. Now, how would you assess how the Trump administration is doing in rooting a lot of this out?
Well, I think they've been terrific. And it's funny you should mention, I just heard from my publisher, and they're bringing out a paperback edition of the book. And I said, look, I'd love to do a new introduction for that, because quite frankly, so much of the landscape has changed in a positive way because of what the Trump administration is doing. They've even taken some of my recommendations directly from the book. I'm not necessarily saying that was the direct vector which they got it, but I do know that this was sort of in the air around folks in the administration. And so that's great. And so, I mean, we've got a long way to go. The woke has not been put away. The woke is not dead. But the Trump administration has really done a tremendous job. I think it's been one of their biggest successes in the first few months that we've had.
We are seeing some universities and corporations pushing back. Harvard is indicating that they'll forego billions of dollars in order to maintain DEI. In corporate America, Delta and some of these other entities have said that they will cling to this. What do you think that says about just like where the the thinking structure is in the country around the tension between the need for federal dollars and the need for the virtue signal.
Yeah, well, I think it varies between organizations. I mean, there's some that really never really kind of wanted to do the DEI in the first place. And they're like, oh, great, now we've got an excuse. We can just say it's legal exposure. We don't want it. So those guys are getting rid of it. And by the way, that's a lot of the value. People say, oh, well, you're just undoing things with executive orders. They can be put back with executive orders. But it doesn't quite work like that because we've opened up a space now where people who don't want to play along can kind of feel like they have a justification for doing that. So I think some of these guys are going to kind of now do the right thing, but you're going to have some true believers. And Harvard is indicating that they are, but I got to tell you, I think they're going to blink. I don't think that they can afford. I mean, they literally can physically afford to lose the amount of money that would be at question, and we're talking billions of dollars, but I don't think they're going to want to. So I think when push comes to shove, they're going to find a semi-face-saving way to cave on this issue. But I think the real key is we need to see not just changes in the nominal policy, but in the personnel. Because what I showed is I had a kind of viral tweet a few weeks ago where the University of Michigan system said, hey, we're getting rid of DEI. And then they're sending students emails basically saying, it's all still there. We're going to rename it. And then when I publicized it, they kind of backed off and said, no, we're actually going to kill it. So, I think you're not going to, personnel is policy, and we need to change the personnel in some of these areas if we're really going to see new policies.
And is that the next frontier of fighting DEI on campuses and in corporations, rooting out the new expressions and branding mechanisms for it and exposing them? Or is there other advice you would give the administration about really how to push this to a more durable reversal?
Yeah, well, I do think that the best way to get a durable reversal is truly to leave a lasting mark. And that can be a few things. I mean, just the most obvious to me is people understand that they lose their jobs as a result of engaging in this sort of racist and discriminatory behavior. That will send an institutional signal. And the other thing is permanently taking away at least a certain amount of the money. So maybe the Trump administration plays a degree of game of chicken with these universities and eventually they get back most of it. But I don't think they should get back all of it. There should be a painful enough financial signal that is sent to these universities that if you've engaged in this, it's going to be very painful for you. And just because Joe Biden 2 or whatever that equivalent is, God forbid, winds up in the White House the next time, you're still not going to go back and do this because, at some point we're going to be back in the saddle. And if we see you've done it, then it's going to be more painful the second time. So
I wonder where these people go, Jeremy, because it used to be the universities were these bastions of comfort for those with these ideologies. Mm-hmm. And if the Trump administration really does this right and really puts the squeeze on that you're describing and they choose the money over some of those endowed professorships and vice presidents of gender studies and whatnot, then it leaves them without much of a path. Do they reemerge? Do they rebrand? Or is this a struggle we're going to be in for the next decade?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be hand-to-hand fighting. In no way am I declaring victory. It's just like we finally discovered that we actually have weapons. And we're like, we got this metaphorical Glock 19. Maybe we should actually use it, right? But we're not. We're still just kind of testing out our strength. We're not still nearly as serious as we can be. And that's not the Trump administration, again, has been terrific, but it's kind of like if you've never exercised those muscles before, you're kind of still going to be just a little bit uncertain about how far you're going to push and where. And so I sort of think they are intelligently looking right now to see how far can we push on some of these areas. But as for some of the personnel, they're going to scream, they're going to fight. But some of them are going to have to retrain into actually useful disciplines and do actually useful jobs. And I expect that to do that, they're going to have to go kicking and screaming.
And if you want to exercise those muscles, you can go get the Unprotected class. Jeremy Carl, thanks so much for writing the book and for your work at Claremont. We'll continue to follow your important analysis.
Thanks so much, Matt, for having me on.